Right, so welcome, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Easy Talk. It's been a while since we've done the Easy Talk because the season hasn't begun yet. But I thought let's do a special Easy Talk because there's been lots of signings, there's been lots of movement, and there is the Europa League Cup action yet to come. Yeah, we're back in the Europa League Cup, but on the show today, we've got two familiar faces, two giants of YouTube and Twitter and the universe on social network. In Richard from Arsenal TV. Good evening, Richard.
Yeah, good evening, Alex. Thank you for inviting me back onto the Easy Talk again. And good evening to you as well, James.
Yeah, good evening, Richard. Nice to speak to you both again after a while and look forward to a good show.
There you go. See, and you hear, I didn't even have to do the introduction. We've got James Rowe all the way there in the Netherlands. So, guys, there's been lots of movement in the transfer windows. And I was just thinking, when I saw the Binay Venkesham and Raul Seleni exclusive interview they did there, I thought they spoke a good game, but we need to see some real action. And boy, have they given us some action. James, what's your thoughts about the signings that we've made?
Delighted, first and foremost. I tweeted last night about Edu and Raul in particular, how quickly and how seriously they've understood what their responsibilities are, and they've gone out to make a difference. And you see with the outlay on Pepe, £72 million, and Dani Ceballos on loan, and William Saliba, who's gone back on loan to St Etienne, and Martinelli as well. I've said on this show towards the end of last year, it's about time we dipped our toe back in the pool of South American talent, and we appear to be doing that now. And it's a great start. You know, we've got some real firepower up front, and Pepe in particular will provide fantastic pace. And you see, I know of Ceballos from his time at Real Betis, and I also interviewed his former teammate at Real Betis a couple of months ago, Ivan Martin, who stated that Ceballos was one of the best players he's played with so far in his career. He's that good. He appears to want to shoot quite regularly, which is a good sign, especially from distance. And as I said before we came on live tonight, I think all of a sudden we're going to start scoring directly from free kicks with the accuracy of Ceballos and with Pepe as well. It was 23 goals and 11 assists last season. Lots of people write off the French league, but you've got to respect it for what it is. When you have teams in a league such as Marseille, Lyon, Monaco, of course there's going to be quality there, and he can give us a real outlet with his pace in particular and natural width, and we've missed that at times. And I'm very excited for the season ahead. I think it's going to be a big season, particularly for Unai Emery, but I'm confident we can win a trophy. Not sure which one. But ideally, you would want us to right the wrongs of what happened in Baku. I would love for Arsenal to show the heart, and the players that lost on the pitch in Baku to show the will to right a wrong and go back and win it the following year, because that would show real character. And very excited about the season ahead.
Richard, what's your thoughts about the signings, especially the record signing yesterday, where a lot of people were anticipating the announcement? And once the announcement was made, literally, I think Twitter and maybe most of the social network platforms went into a meltdown. Well, what's your thoughts about the signings?
Yeah, I'm glad that Arsenal are starting to act like a big club again, starting to dip into much world-class players such as Nicolas Pepe as well. Now, I knew that, Arsenal was crying out for a winger, and I know majority of the transfer that we was linked with Wilfried Zaha, but I think for me that Wilfried Zaha, see me personally, I don't rate him. I really do not rate Wilfried. Pep would have been the best player to bring in because he's quick, he's very, very direct, he's very skillful on the ball as well, and he likes to burst forward. And I'm glad that the board have identified that we needed a winger on that right-hand side because we are lack on numbers on that side. We've got players that can come in and to play on the left, but just not on the right-hand side. I've been very impressed with Martinelli scoring his debut goal against the Colorado Rapids. I thought he played absolutely brilliant. Ceballos, I think he's a great player as well. I've seen him play for Real Madrid a couple of times. But yeah, I'm happy with the way Arsenal are going at the moment, and let's just hope that we can have a better season to what we did last season, and just keep the players coming in.
There was a couple of comments on my channel yesterday in regards to this transfer window and the players, the caliber of players now we have signed at Arsenal. Could this be the best attacking force we've had since Thierry, Bergkamp, Vieira, and Perez, James? Or is that just?
I think first and foremost, the characters of the players you just mentioned, they're all complete one-offs in terms of quality, drive, and ambition, and very talented footballers. And we've got a quartet now. If you was to, for example, name the quartet of Ozil, Lacazette, Aubameyang, and Pepe, that is so much pace and inventiveness that we've got a real chance to really hurt teams. I know that people talk about being a suspect at the back, but for me, and I mentioned it a lot last season, it's the lack of collective at the back and knowing your roles, and more importantly, being able to communicate with your fellow teammates. That was shown up in a bad light on many occasions last season. And for me, that's not necessarily going to be fixed by bringing in one name, because they've got to learn to work as a collective. But our attacking quartet can really cause problems, especially with pace. And you imagine the crosses coming in from Pepe, for example, and creating space for himself with adding natural width. You know, we're in a great position now, but as Richard rightfully said, we got to build on it. There's no point in having a window like this to have, for example, maybe in January or the following summer, a very timid window. It's about keeping the momentum, and as Richard quite rightly says, identifying players better. I was crying out for this all summer. For me, it's not necessarily about the names. It's about identifying what we need. And in the case of Saliba, we needed a centre half. We've got one. In terms of a winger with natural width, we've got one. So slowly but surely, we are adding things and becoming stronger. And hopefully we can keep that up as time goes on.
Before we came on air, James asked me the question, what happens if Unai Emery wins a trophy but doesn't secure that top 4 position that a lot of the fan base have been crying out for? Of course, top 4 secures the Champions League. Richard, what would it mean for Unai Emery? And do you think his job should be or could be on the line?
Well, I know that Unai Emery's got 1 year left on his contract. I think he was only given 2 years. Now, I think what we need to think of is think of the worst thing that could happen. You know, we've got our away record that is still exactly the same, and that has never changed over the course of so many years. And I think that it is an important season for Unai Emery. Now, for me, I think top 4 is a must. Anything less than top 4 is failure, in my opinion, especially in the sort of transfer window that we have had this summer. I know that obviously we do still need to bring in a right back and obviously a left back, in my opinion. But I don't really think much of a centre back, in my opinion, because if Rob Holding is fit and Socrates, those could be your main 2 centre backs. So if you're going to play that sort, I would actually stick with those 2. But yeah, for me, Unai Emery, this is a important season for him. So I know I was thinking about this the other day. Like, if our away record is still the same, time January comes around and we're still out of the top 4 spaces, then there's 2 options that the board need to make. Either Unai Emery has to walk away from the job, or the other option would be that the board may have to find another replacement. Because for me, I think that the fans now cannot say that Unai Emery has not been backed by the board, because that would be just an excuse. You can see that he is being backed by the board now, obviously from the record-breaking signing of Nicolas Pepe for £72 million. Obviously, the amount of signings we have brought in, I know that they are younger players, but you never know. They might be able to do the job for us. Yes, they're not well-known names, but they can do the job and push us forward. Let's go for it.
Me personally, I'm going to back Unai Emery again.
Yeah.
this coming season. Even if he doesn't get us into top 4, we have to remember with the likes of Klopp and Pep Guardiola, it took a while for them to get the wheels in motion and win something. So let's not, for me personally, I don't want our fan base to be too hasty, trying to run before we can walk. Look, we've got these players, Ceballos, Pepe, Martinez, that they have not played in the Premiership before. So to ask them to gel so quickly is for me, it's momentous. So whether we win something or not this season, I won't be barking out for Unai Emery to be removed from the club. And historically, Arsenal have not been that kind of club where we're sacking managers left, right, and centre. That's not been the Arsenal way. We have to give Unai Emery some time. One of the elements was we were crying out for new signings, quality signings. We've got them in. Now he has to be given the time. That's my opinion personally. Give the guy time.
If I can just add something on that. When you have a manager in charge for 22 years, it's a bit naive to give his successor only 2 years. As someone who's in a position to interview professional managers, you have to understand how hard they work. And it's not just simply turning up on match day, picking a starting squad and that be that. Some are working in excess of 7 days a week. And also it can have an influence on players as well. My last interview published for World Football Index was David Boyson, who currently plays for Helsingborg in Sweden. And he was telling me he was at Brøndby. And he was very, very happy at Brøndby, had no visions of going anywhere else. But he's a winger by trade. They get a new manager. He feels marginalised. He's not playing where he wants to play or to get the best out of him. Doesn't get on with the manager and eventually leaves the club. So when you change the manager, you're changing lots and lots of different things that are not always seen by people. And I just think that I'm confident we'll win a trophy this season. Mind you, I said that last year, but especially with the firepower we've got. But 2 years is not a long time. And you've got to remember as well that Unai Emery came to the country and had the courage to do his press conferences in English from somebody who's from Hondarribia in San Sebastian in Spain, showing great courage to improve all the time. It doesn't just happen overnight. You need time. And we've got to get behind him. We've got to get behind him. For me personally, you've got people talk about Champions League. My question to you both now, when we get back in the Champions League, what can we do? Can we win it? Can we get to the latter stages? You've got to remember, every season that you're out of the Champions League, it gets more difficult. The dynamic of the tournament also changes. There's always surprises. You saw that with Ajax reaching the semi-final last year. I can understand the clamour for the Champions League, but if we're not entirely ready, then that might have consequences too. The only reason why I would say about the Champions League being of vital importance, obviously on a sporting sense, but more in a financial sense, because we are currently a Champions League squad playing in the Europa League, paying also Champions League wages. And you've got to think with the money coming in and finding a balance about that. So it is a very important season. It's a long old season, as we know only too well, full of ups and downs. And I know it sounds cliche, but we've just got to take it one game at a time. The Europa League as well is going to be more difficult than last year. I mean, this is our third crack of the whip of trying to win that competition and reaching a semi-final and then losing the final. So you'd like to think that we can go one better in terms of the order. Third time lucky with a bit of luck, but it is going to be difficult. If I could just make one final point about that, I've seen some Arsenal fans, and I always respect the opinion of every Gooner. I see some Arsenal fans tweeting that Arsenal would be able to get through the Europa League group, basically playing kids. And my opinion is that is extremely naive. You only have to look at the qualifying results from yesterday, and we're only in the second qualifying round. And the second qualifying round at the moment, FC Utrecht, who had a tremendous season last here in the Netherlands and has got a very good manager in John van der Brom, have already been eliminated. Sturm Graz, one of the biggest teams in Austria, have already been eliminated. Maccabi Haifa, one of the best teams in Israel, one of the biggest teams in Israel, have already been eliminated, and we're only in the second qualifying round. So I think I'd like to warn against ignorance, really. You know, if we want to win a European competition, we've got to play our best team from the off. You remember last year we lost in Borisov, we lost in Brittany, and okay, we redeemed ourselves by winning in Naples and winning in Valencia. But it's the unknown quantities that we will face in a group phase and hopefully along the way, which we need to improve, especially away from home. Take every game seriously, and fingers crossed we can right the wrong from Baku back in May.
I just want to make one final point about what you were talking about, players and the expectation that, players are going to hit the ground running. We've spoken about the element that a player is a human being. They have family and friends. And you have to remember, from what I can see, I'm not sure how much English that Nicolas Pepe can speak. So he has to overcome the cultural difference in London, the language barrier, being away from his friends and family. So there's a lot of elements that comes into play when we have new players coming in to Arsenal. None of these players, again, are experienced in playing in the Premiership. There's so many elements that can go wrong, but there's so many elements that can go right, which is why I'm going to give Unai Emery some leeway this season. I'm not going to put the pressure on him to be sacked. I'm sorry. In Unai Emery, I trust. Sorry, Richard, did you want to say something? Sorry, Richard.
No, I agree completely with what you're saying, Alex. I agree that we should support Unai Emery and support the players that we have. Now, for me, I don't think the language barrier will be such a problem in terms of the squad-wise, because we've got a lot of French players in our squad. You've got Laurent Koscielny, you've got Guendouzi, you've got Aubameyang, you've got Lacazette, because I know Aubameyang is from Gabon, but he can also speak French. Not
but
really going to be that much of on the pitch. I don't think there's going to be that much of a language barrier in terms of the pitch. But the way our club is being run, we need to trust the regime. We need to trust our new regime, because the way we are looking as a club at the minute, we're going the same way as Ajax has, and we're going the same way as Liverpool has over the past 3-4 years. So we do need to also give the youngsters a chance as well.
If I can just elaborate on a great point that Richard just made about going the same way of Ajax, the big difference, the huge difference, is when a player reaches the first team here, they play in their natural position for a sustained amount of games, and they receive support from the backroom staff, manager, teammates, and the fans. Now, I hope with the young players that are blood in as time goes on, that they receive support, especially from the fans, because that is a very important element for young players. Here, for example, when players break through Ajax, they do not play them out of position deliberately, because they need to gain experience. And if we plan on blooding youngsters through as the season goes on, play them in their correct position for a sustained amount of time, and I hope the fans can get behind them, because they're going to be young players. They are going to make mistakes, but we can remember the old saying that which seems to be forgotten about from recent years, where it said that Arsenal don't buy superstars, we make them. And we've got an opportunity to make that now. I'm not saying we've got to make the same level that we used to, because if you remember, going back into the mid 90s and early 2000s, even players that didn't break through still went on to become Premier League standard. And I'm not saying that we're going to produce the same from the same bottle, but maybe 2 or 3 perhaps. But give them an opportunity and let them play in their right position, and maybe just the small things, really. Maybe bringing them on a sub, for example. I remember going to Sporting Lisbon at home last November, and yes, it was a bit of a dour game, but I thought Emil Smith-Rowe in particular had a tremendous game, and he was up against some very strong attacking Sporting Lisbon players, and he really managed to hold his own. So it's about finding a balance, and but we're in a position now to really reinvigorate our youth policy and bring these young players through. And if we can find a balance going forward of bringing in players like Pepe and like Ceballos and coupling them with our own players, then we've got a good solid base upon which to work from.
Mm-hmm. A question to both of you guys, just before we go into our segue. So we've brought midfielders but our main problem last season has been our defence. Why do you think the board have not gone out of their way to try and get a major signing, a central back or a right back for cover of Bellerin? I know they're trying to get Tierney over the line, but I know there's still some more details need to be finalised there. But knowing fully well that our defence has not helped us over the last 2 or 3 seasons, why have they not tried to, buy a centre back? Why do you think that is, Richard?
Well, do you know what? Do you know what? There's one thing that I'm surprised at is buying Saliba, but then sending him back on loan. That is one thing that I'm very frustrated with, because I've seen Saliba play over in St Etienne, and I think he's a great player. Now, in terms of what we have in our current squad, I reckon Saliba would definitely walk into that first team without a doubt, because he's much better to what Mustafi is in terms of error-wise. He's good with aerial duos as well. So I think he would be able to go into the first team. Now, I think the reason why they sent him back on loan because he's still young. I think that's one of the key reasons why they could have sent him back on loan. I don't understand why that we haven't addressed our centre-backing role and our centre-halves. I do not understand, because the way Laurent Koscielny has been, I would kick him out the door. And I've been hearing that Laurent Koscielny wants to buy out the rest of his contract. That's fine. If we want to pay the extra £5 million, be my guest. Bye bye. See you later. That would be me. But I don't know. I don't know whether they're waiting for Holding to come back from injury. Maybe he might not be fully fit just yet and be ready for the Newcastle game. Maybe he's only brought in a midfielder just to give the midfielder a bit more support to protect the back line, and probably wait until January to bring in another centre-back. So I can't really answer that one, to be honest, Al.
Yeah. James, what's your thoughts? Why do you think we've not invested money in buying a major sign for a centre-back position? Why do you think that is?
I'd like to think that it's been identified by the likes of Raul, Edu, and particularly Unai Emery, that it's a failure to work as a collective, and that's not necessarily going to be fixed by the buying of one player. I did a podcast with Ray from Arsenal Fan Circle last weekend, and he informed me that it was Saliba's personal wish to go back on loan because he didn't feel entirely ready to go into the Arsenal first squad. And you got to admire his honesty, but in the summer he's got to be ready. But having watched the team live on 10 occasions last season, I was mortified at the lack of communication. I don't expect people to rant and rave, but what I could not fathom, I'll give you an example. I'm sitting in the North Bank watching Arsenal Cardiff. Cardiff have a set piece, and in terms of jostling for position and knowing where to stand, these players are using sign language and pointing. Nobody's shouting in that back four. Nobody's being aware of the physical presence that Cardiff team had. And we've got to work. We start to work as a collective. I mean, I know that the rumours of Tierney are gathering pace, but a couple of years ago, Arsenal put in a derisory bid for Ben Chilwell. I know if is a big word, but if we'd have gone in a decent bid, we would now have the best left back in the league, in my opinion. So it's small details. Nothing against Tierney. If he comes, then that would be brilliant. But Ben Chilwell, you saw in the Nations League as well, he's a tremendous player. And Arsenal tried to get him on the cheap and tried to skimp and scrape. But that's been rectified now with the signings of Pepe and especially for that outlay. But they've got to start to work as a collective. They really have. Because if you look at the best defences, they might not all be star names, but they all work as a unit. And that, I mean, look at the Liverpool defence that won the Champions League. There's players that played for Hull City, for example, and were marginalised and criticised in the past. They went on to win. They went on, and Virgil van Dijk. I remember. I'm old enough to remember there were question marks when he first came on the scene here in the Netherlands. There was question marks about him in the first instance. Okay, he made tremendous progression very quickly, But you look at that Liverpool defence that won the Champions League, it's a collective which won them that Champions League. Bodies on the line, common sense, if in doubt, put it out. And we've got to learn those things. I know it sounds strange saying that, Arsenal defenders, considering I was brought up on the famous back five, it seems very strange to say after supporting the club for nearly 30 years, the Arsenal defenders have got to learn, for example, if in doubt, put it out, and the simple things, but they really need to. They really need to. And as I say, I don't think it's going to be fixed by the signing of one player. I really do hope that Emery sticks with a system, maybe a flat back four. It might sound churlish as well, but if they need that flat back four to get familiarised with everybody and know where everybody is and know where to look for the player when attacking, and then that could be a good thing. And my final point on it is, I know it might sound silly, but they also have to remember, first and foremost, they are defenders. With our front four now, and also with the how inventive Dani Ceballos is, there is no need for our left back and right back to bomb forward at the rate they have done in the past. Just concentrate on defending, concentrate on becoming a collective, and then I think we'll see improvements over time.
Good point. Okay, it takes me to myself. Let's take a pause for the cause. So we know literally we've got a record signing in Nicolas Pepe, and that's one thing that kind of niggled me when he had the shirt with his name, Pepe, was I wish they had put the accent above the E's to say Pepe, but it was like P-E-P-E. But that's just something that I'll get over that. I've been speaking too much Spanish. And the other thing as well, there was some other famous number 19s because he's going to be wearing the number 19 shirt. Isn't that right, Richard? Is he wearing the number 19 shirt?
Santi Cazorla was number 19.
Yep. Anybody else?
Gilberto.
Yeah, Gilberto Silva. Yeah, he was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Leno as well wore number 19. Jack Wilshere had worn number 19.
Yeah.
John Jensen at one point wore the number 19. But yeah. So he's in good company, old Nicolas Pepe. James, can you remind the viewers, where can they find you? Where can they find your work?
Viewers can find me on @James Rowe and now on Twitter, and you can keep up to date with my interviews with professional players and managers. Although everybody's been in an end of season pre-season, it's been hard work for me, and there's been no rest for the wicked. And there's some really good interviews coming up. I never reveal the names ahead of time. You'll have to follow me to keep an eye on what they are. But tremendous progress has been made, particularly with World Football Index the last 18 months, and onwards and upwards.
Yeah, and may I also say as well, congratulations, because you've just recently passed the 4,000 mark on your Twitter account. So congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It was a nice surprise, and you have to stay humble. I remember the early days when I only had 66, but for me, it's about producing quality. I'm in a position now where only last week, for example, I spoke to the manager of Peterhead, and in the last couple of weeks, the likes of Jacob Mellis, who came through the Chelsea youth system, and quite a few different players and managers. Adam Strafe, the Canadian player who plays for Hansa Rostock. And so there's some really good interviews coming up. John McGreal, the current Colchester manager. I don't know if you remember our old defender, Cohen Bramall, who was signed from Hennesford many years ago. He's recently signed for Colchester. And John McGreal, he had a spell at Ipswich and Tranmere. It was great to speak to him. And lots of surprises coming up. It'll be a jam-packed season, and I can't give too much away. But very, very pleased, and you just want to keep producing quality.
Yeah, and like I always say to the viewers, that we're trying to take the opportunity now to get James on the channel, because there's going to be a point where he's going to be so busy he might not find time for us. So we're always grateful to have you on Cannon Fodder TV, James, and that comes from both my brother Ralph and myself to you.
Thank you very much for the kind words. As I said to you and Ralph before, regardless of how quickly things grow, it's also about having fun on this podcast and respecting the opinion of fellow Gooners. And even if things do become very, very, very big in the future, I will always try to find time to maybe not all the time, but maybe once in a blue moon as well, just to keep the link open and to come and say hello from time to time. But I think there's still a bit of a way to go. So I'll be around for a while, I think.
Okay, most grateful. And Richard, can you tell the viewers where can they find you? Because you're on your way to 1,000 subscribers, aren't you?
Yeah, I sure am, and I've got something planned for that as well. So yeah. So if I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to dye my hair blonde, which I have done it in the past. So yeah.
I might join you.
But the target for me, yeah. But for me, it's more or less, voicing my opinion about the greatest club in the world. I love and always have done since the age of 5. So yeah. You can find me at my YouTube channel, which is Arsenal TV. You can find me at my Twitter page, which is Arsenal TV Media, where I'll post up like stuff about the transfers and stuff, with news, and also YouTube videos. If you do miss it, it'll be on there as well. So yeah.
Okay, so I'll try and leave the links for James' Twitter handle and Richard's YouTube and also his Twitter handle in the comments box below. Right, so before we go to the next point, there's a couple of comments in the chat, actually a couple of questions as well, from a regular, Screenboy8. And I'll ask the question to James, and he's saying predictions where we will finish in the league for next season. Where do you think we'll finish?
Third.
A solid third. Richard, where do you think we'll finish?
If we don't get the line and we don't bring in another right back, I would probably say 4th, if I'm completely honest. But if we can get Tierney over the line, then yeah, 3rd is a must.
Okay. All right, I'm going top 4 and with a trophy. I think we'll win some silverware as well as secure top 4. Yeah. Okay, so like I said, because of our sorry, go on.
But securing top 4 is the most important thing first. That's what our main objective has to be. Yeah,
but but then by default we'll go into the Champions League, and then we're going to be in a situation where how far can we get in the Champions League? Is it going to be Groundhog Day, that we're just there just to make it numbers, or are we going to really make a charge of it? I don't think we're not prepared for the Champions League, but that's what happens if we secure top 4, that we'll be in the Champions League by default. But that's going to be a conversation that we're going to have, and it's going to run and run. But anyway, guys, so if you're watching Cannon Fodder for the first team, make sure you subscribe and also hit the notification button so you can receive all the latest and greatest news right here on Cannon Fodder TV. Right, so like I was about to say, so by our undoing last season, we didn't secure the Champions League, and we were in the Europa League. We got into the final. Oh, what a final! It was a final to forget. Yeah, we were stamped on. We didn't turn up against Chelsea, did we? But no. Chelsea, kind of exposed the weak underbelly that is at Arsenal. But James, what's going on in the Europa League for this season? What's going on?
Well, as I mentioned in our pod, earlier on in this pod, it's only the second qualifying round, and you have the likes of Sturm Graz, FC Utrecht, and Maccabi Haifa have already been eliminated. You only have to look at the group phases to the teams that have already qualified, and you have the likes of Lazio, and Borussia Mönchengladbach, and Sevilla, and Manchester United, of course. And it's going to be a real hard slog. And I would love Arsenal to show character and go back and win it, because for me, watching the final in May, I was watching it with a friend of mine here in Amsterdam who's also an Arsenal fan. And watching that first half, I must have said to him about 3 times, it's as if they don't understand what's at stake. And then obviously to rub salt in the wounds, an old player goes and scores a header. We lacked aerial presence at times, and he scores with a great header. And I was really confident we was going to win that final. And the history books will tell you now that Arsenal have played one UEFA Cup final and one Europa League final and lost them both. And we've got to try to right that wrong. If you look in recent years, all our competitors have all won European trophies. Liverpool have won a European trophy. Manchester United have won a European trophy. Chelsea have won a European trophy. We haven't. Last time Arsenal won a European trophy was 26 years ago. And, we can't keep clinging on to that. I mean, yes, it's a fantastic memory for you and I, Alex, but for the next generation, this is a great opportunity. And I thought, in particularly, I was at I only missed 2 European home games last season against Karabag and Valencia. I managed to get to the rest. And with Rennes in particular, losing in Brittany, I thought we were very lucky in the home leg. I think they hit the bar. I think they hit the post as well. We're going to come up against unknown quantities in this Europa League as well. And I plead with my fellow Gooners not to show ignorance. Go and look at the squad of the team we're playing. Go and look on what they've done before. And you'll see that we're going to have a real fight on our hands. But if we apply ourselves properly, we can do it.
Richard, what's your thoughts? Because it seems, as James has said, it's like season upon season, the Europa League, it seems to be more arduous as more of a test for the Premiership teams. How far realistically do you think Arsenal can get this time round?
My honest opinion, I would hope that we would like to get to a final again. I would really, really like that to happen. But the last season Europa League final that hurt me more to what it did 2006 Champions League final, if I'm honest. Yeah. But I thought that in the first half of that Chelsea game, I thought it was quite evenly matched, to be quite honest, because we was attacking them, they was attacking us. It was back. It was just the second half. We just fell apart. It was more or less that Chelsea found our weaknesses where we were struggling, and they punished us. And we just did not show some fight. It's like as if that Chelsea wanted the Champions League more than us. That's how it felt to me. But yeah, I think that I would like us to get to a final next time around, because I know that we got to the semi-final before a few seasons ago with Atletico Madrid. We was quite unlucky in that, I would thought, because the red card to Laurent Koscielny. But when getting to the final this time around, getting past Valencia, I didn't really thought we would, because I knew that in that season Valencia were playing such brilliant football. And I knew it was going to be very, very tough to get past them. But yeah, I'm hoping we can get to a final, because I want to see us win a European trophy.
There's a question that's come in the chat actually for you, Richard. It says, can we win the Europa League, Richard? Can we win it?
Do you know what? I think Arsenal is a team that we can go and put our mind to it. It's about the winning mentality. The away form, away from home, needs to change. If it can change and be the same as our home record, why not? Why not?
Well, it remains to be seen. James, quick question: Has Wolves gone through the next round, the next stage?
Yes. They face, I believe, Punic from Armenia, I believe, who beat the Czech side Jablonec, who are quite well known. Obviously, you got the likes of Sparta Prague and Slavia Prague, but Jablonec, they also played against Ajax a couple of years ago. I remember going to that game here. And as I say, that was a surprise. There's going to be lots of surprises coming through. And I think that, we ourselves have to remember what happened to us. Since we've been in this Europa League, this is our third crack of the whip. And since we've been in this competition, we have lost in Cologne. We have lost in Borisov. We have lost in Brittany. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to be honest and objective. We've got to really, as Richard quite rightly says, right the wrongs away from home. It might sound ambitious, but to really put us in the groove and to really show how much we want it, set the team a target to win every group game, home and away. Give it to them. Lay that marker down to them. Say, right, we've got 6 group games, win all 6. Because if you look back in recent history, there are teams that do it. I mean, look at Frankfurt last season. Frankfurt were in a group with Lazio and then the last season's finalists, Marseille. They absolutely blitzed it. I think they won every single game, home and away. Now, Marseille and Rome are not easy places to go, and they managed to get all the way to the semi-final. There's always one surprise in this competition. You saw with Ajax reaching the final recently. You've seen Dnipro, who played the final against Seville. There's always one surprise in this competition which nobody expects. Marseille when they reached the final in 2018, and it's coming again this season. So I would just advocate that we look at who we've got, because I think some Arsenal fans in particular, because they've been spoilt by the Champions League, when they come up against the likes of Wolfsburg, Otava, or Karabakh, or for example Bati Borisov, they think that they're all pub teams. They're not. These are, in some cases, national champions of their own country. They might not be the biggest country in the world, but like, for example, losing to Bati Borisov back in February, yes, we managed to turn it round, but I still believe that's one of the worst results Arsenal have ever had in Europe, with the greatest respect. You know, Cologne, when we lost in Cologne 1-0, they went on to be relegated. And I can understand the clamour for the Champions League, but just look at what's gone before. I would much rather win the Europa League, go into the Champions League as winners, and show the Champions League teams we are back. We've actually got a bit of pedigree, and we're back in the Champions League. Because when we're back in it, it's going to also feel quite strange because you haven't been in it for 3 seasons. You know, so it's the group stage moves at a frenetic pace. You know, there are no easy games in Europe, as we know now, and with our Champions League exploits, getting battered at home and away by Bayern Munich, losing at home to Monaco when everybody thought all we had to do was turn up, getting knocked out by PSV in 2007. We've got to tweak the mentality a little bit, and the best way to do that is to go into the Champions League primarily as Europa League winners, and then it's a double whammy. Then it's basically turning up with a trophy to show, saying that we're not here to make up the numbers. We're here to try to fight to make progress and hopefully win it one day.
Yeah. All right, let's just quick go into the chat just for the last time before we wrap up this Easy Talk special. Let's see if we can do it under an hour. If it goes over an hour, it will qualify as the feature length version, which we don't want. We want the bite-sized version. Right. So one question here, and it comes from Lumberkamp, one of our subscribers, and he says, "Is there any truth behind the interest in Issa Diop?" Does anyone know? I don't know because I've not tried to cover any transfer news at all.
I have no idea.
No idea. I think these transfer rumours, I mean, it's as if, I know it might sound churlish, but it's as if some media outlets put names of players in a hat, put names of teams in a hat, pick them both out and put them together. And it's a little bit strange in some cases. You know, as you rightly said earlier on in this pod, Alex, some players have family and young children. Maybe they don't want to move. Maybe they're very happy where they are. And the Premier League, although it's the bright lights, it's not the be-all and end-all. I mean, I remember speaking to the Nigerian player, Simon Oga Foron. He was a Nigerian youth international. And he was supposed to go to Panathinaikos. He was all set to go and play for Panathinaikos. He suffered a huge injury, and the transfer never came again. So yes, there are rumours that things can happen to players. Players can suffer injuries. There could be an opportunity to go, and then all of a sudden the club don't come back in, or could be a medical. It's really not as simple as that. And you know, buying isn't always the only solution. And as I say, as Richard made some great points on this pod tonight, you know, we've identified players and brought some great players in. So let's, fingers crossed, we can keep it up. But just take a step back and review what we've got before delving in once more.
Yeah. It probably takes us to the next comment here, which comes from Ryan at the Mr. Arsenal podcast. Does the panel expect any more surprises from the club concerning transfers between now and Thursday? What do you think, Richard?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great question from Ryan, but I would expect us to get this Tierney deal over the line. That's one of my expectations, because this Tierney deal has been going on for too long now. And I'm surprised it has not been done quick enough. Now, in terms of that Tierney deal, what Arsenal should have done, they should have went in with a higher bid first. They should have went in with their third bid, which was that £22 million. Then maybe this deal could have got done a little bit quicker than normal. Because I know our first bid we went in was £15 million. And I think that was of Kieran Tierney's caliber. I actually thought, obviously of his quality as well. I think that was a bit too cheaply, and that's why Celtic pushed us away. But yeah, I'm hoping that there is going to be more surprises from us in terms of the transfer dealings. Yeah.
I think just going back to the Tierney deal, from what I understand, he's currently injured. It's like making this comparison. It's not a fair comparison, but you imagine if you see this car, you've wanted to buy this car for X amount of money, so you view the car, and then you realize the car needs a lot of work. So I think that's what's happened with Tierney. They've gone in there with a bid. They've realized that he's injured, and they're probably thinking, well, he's probably not worth that amount of money. But we're still intent on buying Tierney, even though he's currently injured. So that's where I think we're stuck, because he's still injured. We're still trying to negotiate his real value, as it were. But This
reminds me of the Cole Jenkinson. Like every time we wanted to offload him, he got injured. That's exactly what it reminds me of. But yeah, I'm hoping we do get Tierney, because I rate Tierney. But I reckon the best fullback that's in the Premier League, or to say the best two, is Trent Alexander-Arnold for Liverpool, as well as Robertson. I think they are the two best fullbacks.
Yeah. All right, and there's one more here, which we'll round off with. Screenboy 8, getting Holding and Bellerin back will help. And that's why I think, personally, why Emery hasn't delved into the market to buy a centre-back, because Bellerin and Holding, who were the main elements during the 22 unbeaten game run there, and he's probably thinking, listen, we've got these players. We've got the centre-back, we've got the right-back, but they're not readily available, so I'm going to pass on. That's my feeling. I don't think he's going to look to buy a centre back, because Holding's yet to come back, and we've got Bellerin. That's what I think, anyway.
Well, don't take my word for it, but I think Holding might be ready for the start of the season.
Yeah.
Because I've seen him in training a couple of times as well. Bellerin, I think he's coming up to speed, but I don't think they want to risk him for the first opening game of the season. Which in my sight, I think that's a good idea, because he's been out for quite some time. The way the signings are going, I think Emery is looking to stick with a 4-2-3-1 by the look of it.
I think so. But
if he's going to do that, then it's got to be Socrates. For me, it's got to be Socrates and Holding to start as the main two centre backs.
Left back, Tierney.
If it happens, and Tierney. If not, then Monreal.
Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap up this segment, which is just qualifies as a bite-sized version. Thank goodness for that. But listen, I want to say a big thank you to James. Again, it's always a pleasure to have you back on Cannon Fodder TV. And, you know, my brother speaks so highly. Actually, my brother and Terry speak so highly of you. You're highly regarded on the channel.
Thank you very much for the kind words. And as I say, it's great fun when speaking to Ralph and Terry too. And look forward to speaking to them soon. And thanks for the kind words.
Yeah, no worries. And Richard, of course, brother Richard, Arsenal TV. I'll leave the link for your Twitter handle and your YouTube channel in the comments box. Richard, again, it's always a pleasure also to have you back on Cannon Fodder TV as well.
Yeah, thank you, Al. Thank you very much, James.
And guys, make sure as well, whoever's watching, make sure you go over, subscribe to Arsenal TV, because I want to see Richard put the blonde streak in his hair. Yeah, but anyhow. You've been watching Cannon Fodder, the channel for Arsenal fans all over the world. And we are out.